When I was shooting Captain America, Civil War, where I played King T'Chaka, I went to address the United Nations to do exactly the same speech my son, King T'Challa, did the last speech he did. That's when they killed me. So I was very proud that we recreated that speech and made him read it at the end of the movie. Wakanda again answers this old myth that if white people did not come to Africa or South Africa and colonize us and westernize us so we could speak good English, we'd still be running around in loincloths and chasing each other with spears. Wakanda proves it's not true. Natural development, scientific progress within a people would have happened anyway. And when I speak about this, I want to say, you guys, we built the pyramids in Egypt. White man doesn't know how, and we ain't telling him how. We built the Zimbabwe ruins. We started that great library in Timbuktu that carries the history of our people. We built the Mapungubwe, where we mined gold and traded with the Chinese on the 11th century. We have just a few miles out of Johannesburg, the cradle of humankind, where the first Homo sapiens in our form began. We, as black and Africans, are the original copy. Everybody else is the duplicate.
Amen.
So when you get an opportunity to work in this kind of environment, you try as much as you can to make a little impact. And I was very, very fortunate that Marvel in Captain America, we had a scene with Scarlett Johansson, Chadwick, and Chris Evans was leaving. So I'm now left with my son. And I say to him, I miss you, my son. I haven't seen you for a long time. Then I stopped. I said to the director, why am I speaking English to my son? He said, what do you mean? I said, no, we're both from Wakanda. Surely there is a language in Wakanda. They said, well, but we never thought of that, about that. Then they said, what would you say? And I said, Unqabile nyana, ngikugqibele kudala. And there was an applause on the box up there, and they said, that's it, that's the official language of Wakanda.
Amen.
But the wonderful thing is that when I said that line, without teaching Chadwick what to say, he replied, Diakolisa Baba. I said, hold it, where did you learn that? He said, when I was doing a movie, when I was much younger, in Cape Town, the crew there gave me a name, Umxolisi. Coincidence, my eldest son is Umxolisi. And I thought, my God, we're brought by the ancestors. The ancestors have built a bridge across the Atlantic between the Africans in the homeland and the Africans in the diaspora. After 400 years, the African Americans still look like us. The whole change did not change them. So then when we went to Black Panther, it was an incredible experience working with these young people, Peter Nanyongo, Danai, Gurira. We performed at the Market Theatre, Continuum. Michael B. Jordan, Forrest Whitaker, who saw my play in 1975, and he says, I decided to be an actor. Chadwick, the director Ryan Coogler, who said, I have been studying you at Yale. All these things, please don't make me more than who I am. It just makes me a working actor who is always passionate about our people. This movie gave us the opportunity to put Africa to the world as a place of knowledge, a place of stability, governance, and leadership, especially at the time when there is a serious lack of leadership.
Motivated, and what kept you dedicated to your art form, I guess. So performing, writing, directing, what kept you going in a time when that was so politicized and it was so taboo?
When my mom in the 50s would wash my clothes and a small cigarette would fall out, she said, how? You smoke? A couple of years ago, my youngest son, Mom and I were doing, washing, and she says, Dad, could you throw this in the washing machine for me? And I picked up the pens, I'm trying to take any tissues or anything out of his pocket. Those tissues mess up the cycle when the thing dries. And out fell a condom. My wife says, how? And I said, no. Let us celebrate. This fool wants to live. So we had those challenges, but what drove us was the dream. I knew that I wasn't put on this earth simply to be nobody. And I knew too that it was incumbent and depending on me 100% to make me what I want to be and how I see it. Because I follow my dream. Yeah. Now today's youth, my God, you got social media. Before you think, already somebody's telling everybody what you are thinking. You got other challenges of unemployment. There's even an organization here in Johannesburg which is called the Organization of Unemployed Graduates. Did you listen to that? Unemployed graduates. Your challenges are more complicated than our time. But what drove us was that spirit for liberation. We knew this was our country. Our fathers told us that you have to be prepared to die. The only way we could fight this liberation struggle was to be ready to die. It was the ultimate price and honor to die for the struggle. We need you to liberate completely so that we never ever have this situation repeat itself again. We need you to do away with food shortage, with poverty, with unemployment, with injustice, and most important, we need you to deal with this violence against women and children. This is un-African. When we was discussing with the director in Black Panther about how many women you think should be in the council, how many women would be allowed in the traditional, and Americans have such a warped concept of who we are in Africa, that women in Africa are not allowed to speak in a meeting. They're not allowed, even if they are CEO, they must ask a man to speak on their behalf. Even if they are a leader of a family, they must ask a malume to speak on their behalf. Africa has never suffered patriarchal society. My dad, when he spoke, there was a little humming and grumbling in the bedroom last night. He's just echoing what my mom told him to say. My grandmother was a matriarch. He officiated over the slaughtering of oxen when we were praising our ancestors. It's got nothing to do with Jesus and going to heaven. I have ancestors. I'm sorry about that. I will remember the dead and I will remember the living and I will expect the incoming with great joy and expectation. I am an African. I'm sorry. Fame is the byproduct. Being known becomes a little bit of a problem. Celebrity is the no-no. Because you're just a working artist. You're like anybody else who has a job and loves their job and serves the people through their job. Nothing makes us special. We're just working.
And the next question would be, how would you want Black Panther to shift the way Black and African stories are told going forward?
It will just inspire us. It may be even give us a heart sore beat. Because if we had money, we could do better than this. If we had resources, we could tell greater stories than this. Those stories will not be just about comic book heroes, it will be our own heroes. What was incredible in the Black Panther is that a young person somewhere on this continent, somewhere in the diaspora, somewhere, who'd been used to heroes like Spider-Man, Superman, Iron Man, Phantom, Tarzan, who would roam around Africa, brought up by apes, and I'm thinking, God, those apes would have eaten that kid long ago. And then this time, you have a hero who looks like you. You have a hero who speaks an African indigenous language. This afternoon I was talking to Ghana broadcast and Nigeria and Khartoum and Egypt, and they said, we don't care what the language Wakanda speaks. Those African dialects that we heard, we knew it wasn't English. So that's what made everybody proud. We hope then that we will be able to inspire young people to write. We then, our responsibility as elders is to find way to raise the money to make them realize their dreams and their projects. We need to use our contacts. We know a lot of rich people. We even have a lot of rich people in government. We even have billionaires who are black and in this country. I think you need to collaborate with us and say, Tata, you know how to knock at Motsepe's door. Tell him we have a project, we need to talk to him. In that way, we will be able to give the young people in this country and the film industry to make an incredible impact in our journey. In that way only will we hear your voices. Your voices are too hip for us. Your pens are hanging below your knees. You're talking American and you're born in this country. We ain't listening all the time. We need to slow down, guys, both of us, all of us, slow down. Let's talk, let's hear each other, and let's engage. Maybe in an intellectual discourse, we might come to a solution that would benefit all of us.
I just wanted to say that I'm very proud of what the Blackboard Africa ladies are doing, and I'm really proud of what you've done for our film industry. And I'm really proud that this movie has showcased an African narrative that no one has seen thus far. And I'm really proud that our black African actors supporting this initiative. And I want to see more stories like this. As a young black filmmaker, up and coming, we want to tell our own stories. I'm tired of seeing people importing other filmmakers to come and tell our stories because they can't tell the stories like we do. You know, we understand the story, we live the story, we breathe, we sleep the story. So I'm just really glad that this movie happened at the time that it happened. Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you, Blackboard, for giving us this opportunity to be here. My only question for Utata is, you've been all around the world, you've been part of so many amazing projects all around the world. What keeps you so grounded to your African culture? As you're speaking here now with us, I can tell that you're so passionate about African culture, about us as Africans, not only South Africans, but Africa as a whole. What keeps you so grounded? What keeps you so passionate? What keeps you so inspired? What pushes you forward to embrace Africanism and just the African culture as a whole?
That drove me was the fact that I'm a very arrogant native. I am overconfident, and I do not apologize. I come from a long line of great kings and kingdoms. I don't have to explain that to you. Therefore, whenever I was confronted with the issue of being African, I smiled. I said to a conference in LA before 1994, we were invited by United Nations, I said, please don't treat us black people as victims of apartheid. We're not. There is a struggle to liberate the people of South Africa against apartheid. While you are in the war, you are not inferior to your opponent. While you are in the war, you become superior if you win the war. Did we not win? We won. And before they can go into heaven, they'll have to apologize for trying to be another person for the rest of their lives. Now, I'm only trying to say to my wonderful, brilliant people around this room, it begins with us. We're so strong. I realized I wasn't the only one suffering. My neighbor was suffering. But we were afraid because the question was, what can I do alone? I'm just a young man. I'm just a young woman. No, no, no. Ask the person on your left. She'll say, I'm angry too. Ask the other one down the street, I'm angry too. And within the day, you got 10,000 people who are angry, who have a common cause. And that would be your strength.
Hello, Sanmanan. I'd like to comment and say that the movie was really brilliant. I love the fact that it represented so many things, such as women feeling empowered and looking at other women. For young girls to be looking at other women who are superheroes, because a lot of movies, especially movies about superheroes, do not represent a lot of women, and I think that will change the narrative, and hopefully more movies will start having women's voices and will show that women are strong in different ways. So I really appreciate that about the movie.
Speaking of African pride, sicela uzithuthe.
Look, again, we were talking with Eleanor Sisulu, and we were talking about how do we save our culture and our language in a community that is now emerging in South Africa, where my neighbor said, you know, Dr. Kani, my daughter is the only black child in that school. 3 years later, I'm getting out of my child out of that school. The standards have dropped. There are too many black children. There are even black teachers. And I'm thinking, man, can we see each other? Can you see me? So now what we want to set up is an academy, some kind of foundation, which we will then engage young people who somehow, through no fault of theirs, because the principal and the schools keep saying, she must speak English. She's struggling at school. What language do you speak at home? Is it isiXhosa or Sesotho, or do you speak English? And therefore, we must stop that until Putin could have a master's in philosophy, and he wrote and studied it in Russian. Until Mitterrand has a PhD and a doctorate in literature, and he studied it in French. Can you imagine if my son was sitting on a desk at school doing mathematics in isiXhosa? Do you know that he will have his hand up before the question is finished? Because he receives it first time, interprets it immediately. We sit on this desk and we speak good English, but every time you ask a question, we think in Xhosa. And we say, well, let me put it this way, and why is English running away now? Because your language, your culture is struggling to surface. It's not your fault. We met the economic and educational needs of the day, but we need to correct that. Now that we know the damage it causes, we need to address it. One more and I go home.
I think we're going to have to wrap up the questions. Unfortunately, there's another queue waiting to Wakanda.
Thank you very, very much. Say one thing before I go. Please don't ask me why I always work with my son. I'll always do that. He's my son, for crying out loud.
Screen for powering this entire experience. Keep dreaming, keep it African, and let's tell more African stories, man. And this is a turning point in this intro. Thank you so much, Curtis. You are the best, dude.
We needed to cool down. Please work. Please work. And stop negotiating demand. Demand. There's more of you in this world. You know, 75% of young people in this country. And you're saying nothing. And we're messing up. And we want you to vote. You don't, because I suppose I'm going to suggest to the government we should vote online. Yes. Every young person will vote because they don't have to stand in the queue. We have to find a way to get it. But what makes authority very important? You make wonderful speeches, but you're not moving. You raise issues, but you're not making them. Your voice is heard, but it has no plan of action. And when you go into this meeting, you start being intimidated by the grey hair and the people with the money, and you compromise your own presentation. It's not important that I didn't get the job when they shot one movie, because I had terms what movie I would do, what role I would play. It got to a point where they said, don't worry with John Kani, it's not about the dignity and the humanity of African people, you won't do the role. And then somebody said, that's what I'm looking for. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. So it's important that go get it. Shooting and working through The Lion King, and it's opening July. We started last year, 2017 and it's open in July 2019. You can do that because you have nearly $1 billion US. Therefore, you have the luxury of truly exploring and imagining and creating the most unbelievable picture. One of the things the director wanted, plus the set design, plus the costume design, that guys, we have an opportunity. This movie is going to be shown globally. What is the Africa code of dress? What is the Africa fashion statement? 2, guys, we have an opportunity to show what we would do if we had a country with vibranium and power and technology and most advanced arms, and which could kill everybody, but we are going to use them. You know, so there was a plan. It was not a mistake. This movie is like this. We were sitting around talking, and in that way we can create. But what happened was we had the money. That fly me 3 times in 1 month back to LA to discuss. You understand? So before we say we will be able to do such a movie in South Africa, why can't we produce in Africa? Africa is poor because our money is in the World Bank. South Africa owes trillions of US dollars. Every time we collect tax, the first thing we do, we pay off the debt. We have not even begun to pay off the debt, we're paying the interest on the debt. If I come in Dati, I can come with Sabi Chelele, maybe you hear some of the proteges that I mentored, and they would be speaking as women. And it wouldn't be this dominating huge figure called John Kani. Maybe when Atandwa is around back in South Africa, he's at New York now, I bring him to talk to him and find out how does he manage his life. Maybe when talk about Yvonne Shaka Chaka and say, come and talk. We talk about Wendy Lohabe, which is one of the leading businesswomen in this country. Come and talk. Because you need to have a multi-pronged approach to the liberation of women, and especially young women. I'm not talking from abuse. We can fix that. Get this guy to the jail. Don't tolerate him. As my mom said, if he ever does that, dump him. Because one time he's not going to be able to control this. He says to my daughter, if he ever touches you, I know people who know people who would do anything for me. I said at the wedding. He said, my daughter's very beautiful and she's not HIV positive. You just touch her or give her anything. I know people who know people who do anything.